Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to week 2 of BK121. I'm Chef Genevieve. With us today we have Chef Gina Donovan and Chef Roberta Claire. They are going to be such valuable resources and mentors to you during your externship process. So I've invited them here today. I'm so grateful they were able to join us. They're going to give us a rundown of things that we need to be working on now, things to expect in the coming weeks, and what we need to do to prepare for that. So, ladies, please take it away.
Thank you, Chef. Yes, so hi, I'm Chef Gina Donovan, and we have Chef Roberta Claire here, Chef Roberta. And we really just wanted to introduce ourselves. You can place our faces and names together. We'll be guiding you through the 6 weeks of externship, which is your very next class, your very last class, and the class right before you graduate. So congratulations on getting this far. You're almost there, right around the corner. So we're here to talk to you about what externship is, how it works, what's expected of you, what's needed now. I have a little mini presentation that I can show, and that will give us your contact, that will give you our contact information, and what the next steps are. And then maybe we can answer a couple questions, and then you'll have our contact information so you can connect with us individually, and we can help you and get you to get you set up for externship successfully. So I'll share my screen. And here we are. This is our contact information. So there's actually 3 of us that will be working and guiding you through the 6 weeks of externship. Chef Roberta Claire has joined us, and she will be really focusing on you all, the pastry group. We do both cohorts together. We do our live sessions together, but Chef Roberta Claire will be your go-to person if you had any questions while you're on externship. And even getting in, you can contact all 3 of us, any of us. Our phone numbers are here. Our email addresses are here. You can take a quick screenshot of this if you'd like. And then also in the chat, I can put our email addresses. But you can find us in the directory too. So again, I'm Chef Gina Donovan. We have Chef Steve Brown, who's not with us this morning, but you'll meet him soon enough. And then Chef Roberta Claire, who's with us this morning. And you can call her at 321-558-7371. You can text the number 407-734-0710. And I'll leave it here for just a second so you can jot that down. Okay, so some really quick points. You cannot graduate from the program until you take and pass externship. So this is a required course. So the successful completion of the industry externship course is required to complete your program and to graduate from the program. Your hours will begin counting at the start of your scheduled externship course. So regardless of when you get your externship site, externship starts, I say with or without you. So come Wednesday, April 8th through Tuesday, May 19th, that is your 6-week externship course. During that 6-week time period is when you're scheduled for externship and when externship hours will count. So what's due week 2? And when I say we, all 3 of us, Chef Genevieve, Career Services, we all want to make sure you're set up successfully for externship. We want to make sure that you are ready to go. And really the hardest part, we try to make it as easy as possible for you for externship. So the hardest part is just getting that yes from an externship site, from getting that job, getting that paperwork in, getting someone to say yes. That's the hardest part. So the earlier you start on that, the more prepared and ready you are to hit the ground running on April 8th. So now we ask of you to submit your externship agreement and site agreement. Not every single one of you will have an externship site already right now, but the hope is that you're getting pretty close. So if you haven't already started that conversation with your career services rep, now's a good time to start that relationship and work with them, I would say every day or a couple times a week. You'll contact them if they have probably already contacted you, but just get in touch with them. Let them know where you are. How many site visits have you been? Where are you in the process? Have you been on any interviews? Have you applied? If not, they'll help you with that. They'll help you kind of figure out how to get started with that. They'll help you with your resume. They are a really great resource. And if you just email careerservices@escoffier.edu, there's someone on that email at all times. So they'll immediately connect you with who your career services rep, if you don't already know who it is. And then you can start that conversation. And they'll be really helpful with that. Because I know it's a little nerve-wracking. It can be kind of scary. But it's even scarier when you start externship without an externship site, because you really, you've come this far, and we want to make sure that you graduate, as I'm sure you do. So again, the course begins on Wednesday, April 8th. So it's right after this course is over. Once you pass this course, you have a 1-week spring break. Again, no hours for externship will count. You can take that week off, you can work, whatever you choose to do. You'll be up and ready to go for April 8th's externship start date. You're required to work 150 hours, and that's a minimum. Many of you will work way above and beyond 150 hours during that 6-week period, and that's fine, and that's great. But you have to at least reach 150 hours by the time the 6-week period is over. And it is a 6-week class, so every week you'll be turning in hours, and as I said, Chef Roberta and I want to make sure it's as easy as possible for you. So we'll get you set up with timesheets, and really this class is about going in to your site and learning and growing and developing the skills that you learn here in class, so in all of your classes. And all of you will have totally different externships, different sites, different types. So you'll be honing different skills, and that's all great. The whole point is you're getting into that work site and you're learning for those 6 weeks, and above and beyond the 6 weeks, forever. you'll be learning. But for us, for Chef Roberta and I, it's about keeping a paper trail of those 6 weeks that you've done those hours and you've reached at least 150. Any hours worked outside of that 6-week timeline, they won't count toward externship. It's just extra learning. And then all of your sites must be secured, and all your externship agreements are due before the start of the class. So that's why there's a place in your week 2 assignments here in Chef Genevieve's class where you can print out the documents needed and you can upload them there, so that it's easy for you. I'm sure Career Services has been contacting you, asking where you are in the process, if your paperwork is ready, and you'll have people asking. You can always email careerservices@escoffier.edu. And I know that this question's come up. What if you've already submitted the paperwork? Well, there's a couple of answers to that. If you've already submitted it and you've had Career Services say, thank you, we've received it, and they're not asking for anything else, because like I said, this is going to be a paper trail of your externship. So all of the T's have to be crossed, the I's have to be dotted. We have to see signatures are correct, names of supervisors are correct. All this paperwork gets processed and verified. And if anything's just slightly off, we or Career Services will ask for a correction. So if you haven't had that, then you're good to go. If you have any questions, you'll see my contact information. I can just check for you and make sure. And if you really just want to feel safe, you can go ahead and upload the documents again if you have them. So we'll have them twice. But yeah, if you have any questions on what has been received and where you are in the process, you can certainly contact us and or Career Services. We're all here to help you with that. So there are 2 agreements that are required for externship. One is called I'm just going to call it the site agreement. You see it here as externship site agreement. The difference between this document and the other one we'll show you is that it has the word site agreement. And really what this is it's an agreement or an understanding between your site, the employer, and us, the school, Escoffier. So this is really, it has a little breakdown, and when you print out the documents, you can see, I'm not going to go over every single bullet point, but basically you hand this over to your supervisor at your externship site. They put in the date here, and then they kind of go over what's happening. You're a student, they're hosting students for Escoffier to get through their externship, and there's a couple of things that they are agreeing upon. Like if it's an unpaid student, the students are not entitled to any wages because that's something that they agreed with you. that they're providing enough hours to fulfill the externship commitment, that they will complete, hours and sign paperwork every week for your hours, things like that. And then they'll check this box whether they're hosting a paid or unpaid site. And we've hosted so many employers for students for externship. So, basically the one employer needs to fill this out once. So if you're going to a place that, that have hosted externs for Escoffier many times, they'll click or check this box. It does have to be printed and it does have to be hand filled out with a wet signature, but they can check the box paid and unpaid or one or the other. They'll put the name of the business, the phone number, all the contact information, the primary contact, like the hiring manager and their title, a phone number and an email, how many externs they can host at a time. So we know at least one, because if they're hosting you, they'll put the number 1 here, or they can do 5+, 10+, however many. And then the most important part, we can't accept a document without a signature. So they'll print and sign their name here. And then the next agreement is a 2-page document. It's called the externship agreement. So the previous one was the site agreement between us and the site. This one is an agreement between you and the site, you and the employer. So you fill out the first page and you will put this course start date. And no matter who you are, when you're starting your externship site, the course start date is April 8th. That's when the next term begins. And that's when you're going to be scheduled for externship. You will print your name and the program, so the pastry arts program for each of you, your address, your phone number, and your email. So this is all about you. And now you're agreeing to a set of bullet points, that you'll contact the career services office to ensure that your documents are in place, that you'll follow all the policies and rules at the site, that you'll complete the required minimum hours, that you'll send your timesheet in every Tuesday evening, and then you sign and you date it. And that's your piece. So then the second page you'll send to your employer. And this is where they fill out. And once again, it's pretty similar, almost identical to the first agreement. They're just signing off on another set of guidelines that they agreed to. So again, their business name, all the contact information. We can't accept a form with a blank line. So we need their phone number, we need the email, we need to know your position to make sure it's in line with your program. And then of course they will check the pastry arts box. Your start date. So this date might be different from the first page where your externship course start date is April 8th. Maybe you started today, so you would have today's date there. Maybe you start a week after externship for whatever reason, and that, you would let us know. But whatever date is your hire date is the date that will go here. You'll check whether it's unpaid or paid and what the rate of pay is. And then they're agreeing to provide training, to provide guidance and direction to you, to work with you to develop a schedule that, you can learn rotational tasks, that they'll provide you with 150 hours. And so these are just some things that fall in line with what the externship is. Says the weekly average is 25 hours a week over 6 weeks. That equals 150. If you work at least 25 hours a week, you'll be safe. They'll sign and they'll date. So whoever's name is up here, that supervisor must sign right here. And then there's a little extra line here for what's called a proxy, like a substitute, anyone that they authorize in addition to themselves to sign off on your weekly hours. So their name, their title, and their signature will go here. Then that's done. Then you'll take a picture of all 3 pages and you can upload it into the class, and then we have your paperwork and you're ready to start externship April 8th. So that's the paperwork. It can look a little lengthy or be intimidating, but it's really, I just broke it down. It's 2 agreements. You sign 1 page, they sign 2 pages, and it's the contact information. So it's really simple. That gets, just like your assignments, you take a picture and it gets uploaded. So we'll have all 3 documents. There are a couple supplemental documents that you'll have or possibly need when you're in externship. One is optional, it's the proxy form. So just a second ago, there was a little place on the externship agreement where an additional person can sign off. Again, we want to make this easy for you, so we know what it's like out there. I mean, if you're at a big hotel, who knows when you're working with your chef supervisor? You know, you may have a different schedule. Hours are due every Tuesday. They may be off Tuesday. You have no idea. So we have this proxy form available in the classroom, and you can update that at any time. You know, once you get started in externship, once you're in the class and you see, you know, your schedule's changed, their schedule's changed, you kind of get the lay of the land a little more. You see who you're working with on Tuesdays or your last day of the week. So you can print that out. You can add additional people to this form. They will sign, and then your original supervisor will sign and approve these proxies. And now we'll have a whole list of people that can sign off on your weekly timesheets. So for this, it's kind of the more the merrier. Unless you're in a really small, maybe bakery where it's just owner operated and you're working with them every time. But if you're in a larger place, it would be helpful to you to have additional people. It's not required, but it might be helpful just so you're not in a jam when you need to get your hours signed every week. So that's the proxy form. That will be available to you in the class once the class starts. And then the electronic timesheet. So you will submit your hours electronically. Once the class starts on Wednesday, April 8th, you'll have access to the class. And once your paperwork is in and processed, so if it's already in and approved now, once you start the class, pretty much by the end of the day, you'll have access to the electronic timesheet. You'll get to see it, pull it up on your phone, your Chromebook, your device, your computer, whatever it is, and you can look at it. But you won't need it until the end of the first week. So you'll work the whole first week, and after, you know, on Tuesday, the first week is after April 8th. So Tuesday, April 14th is when week 1 hours are due. You'll put all your hours in electronically. You'll hand off your device to your supervisor. They sign it, you hit submit, and that's your weekly homework. Just keeping track of your hours, putting them in at the end of the week, and getting them signed off. Pretty easy. I took a screenshot of what your electronic timesheet looks like. So it's not a paper that you'll carry around, it's electronic. So it'll look just like this on your phone or a tablet. And as long as you have a smartphone or tablet and internet access, then you'll be able to access it at your work site. A lot of times your chef or supervisor or the manager, they have an office and a computer that they'll let you use. You'll just log into Escoffier to the classroom. You'll click the link, you'll pull up the timesheet, and then you'll put in all your hours for the week. You'll make sure the dates are correct. You'll put your hours. You'll scroll down because this isn't the whole document. You'll scroll down and they'll sign it, and then you hit submit. And then you can even make sure it went through by checking the progress, and then we have your hours. So, I mean, this is just a quick little overview of how you're going to submit your hours so that it's not a mystery when you start April 8th. But we'll go over it in detail on the first day of our at our live session. So we have 2 live sessions, and we'll have one the very first day. So here are any additional details. Turning in your hours every week, that's your weekly attendance. So you must submit your hours every week, and that's how you're attending the class. Our weeks, just like they are now, are Wednesday through Tuesday. So no matter what your work schedule is, that can seem a little confusing at first if you're on the schedule from, say, Monday through Sunday. It doesn't matter. You're just putting in hours that you worked every day from Wednesday through Tuesday and submitting them on Tuesday. And then they're due every Tuesday after your shift. Here is a map of the United States, and this is generally who your career services reps would be. You probably already know who they are by now. And changes happen all the time. Our school's growing, the career services department is growing, and you might have been set up with somebody ahead of time, and that's who your rep is. So if this looks a little off to you, don't worry. I mean, really, you can just email careerservices@escoffier.edu and say, I forgot who my rep is, and they'll connect you with someone. But basically, the West Coast in purple and the whole West half is Annette Martinez Smith, and her phone number is 4390 if you want to shoot her a text. And you forgot, we have in blue Clara Hernandez. She's actually on a leave right now, so you'll have someone else assigned to you until she gets back. And then in pink is Virginia Holcomb at 810-545-7882. So you can take a quick screenshot of this, but really, if you wanted to know who your rep was, I can help you with that. You can also email careerservices@escoffier.edu, and they can help you with that as well. And I'm sure they've sent you an email by now. This is more career services contact info. Again, I think it's easier just to email careerservices@escoffier.edu if you don't have that contact information already. And then once again, our contact information. So I'll just leave it here for maybe a second, and then I'll put it in the chat, and I'll see if there are any questions.
This is a quiet group, but I definitely want you guys to speak up if you have any questions.
Hello.
Also, oh, yes, Willie?
Yeah, I do have a question. There was one place that I had totally secured. I thought was secured, and the management came back and told me no, that was for Publix. By me being in a small town, there's it's real limited as far as bakeries are concerned. I am waiting on one more place, but what would I do if there are like no other places?
Well, you don't give up. You know, there has to be some sort of fit somewhere out there with you, and that's why we have a team of career services that will really help you search, send you leads, come up with, I mean, there's not just bakeries. That's not the only place that you can do your externship at. Like you said, there are the grocery stores, there are nursing homes, group homes, things like that. You don't have to just be in baking. You can be in like garde manger and, you know, and prep where you're learning emulsions and things like that. So the world is pretty vast, and their job in career services is to help you find that. So if you feel like you've exhausted all efforts, send them an email and they'll send you more. You know, they can follow up on your behalf. We can keep pushing, you know, Publix. There are just lots of different things that can happen. But we, you know, we go through this term after term where people are in communities that are smaller or larger, or, you know, just you're all over the place. So, you know, the hope is that we find a solution by the time externship starts, and you just keep working on it every week. There are nonprofits also, churches.
Kathleen asked a question in the chat. Sorry, Chef, that you've already answered, but it bears repeating. She asked if you've already uploaded your externship agreement and career services has approved it or said, thank you, we've received it. You do not have to submit it again, but it also doesn't hurt. If you never safe than sorry, Chef Gina said that that's totally fine. If you put it in, if you've already got it in, but you put it in that submission spot, that works just as well. We just want to make sure that it is submitted at least once, and you can reach out to career services to double check. If you haven't heard something, you felt like maybe you have submitted, reach out, just say, hi, I'm checking in on my agreement, and they'll get back to you ASAP with information.
Perfect, exactly. And, you know, career services are pretty, you know, great at making sure everything's there. So even as you get closer and there's some sort of question, someone will reach out to you and say, oh, you're not ready, we just need this signature. And that doesn't mean you can't start. That doesn't mean anything. It just means you go back and fix what needs fixing and you continue on your way. So, I mean, that's the same with hours. You'll have Chef Roberta or myself reach out and say, you know, the hours didn't go through, or the dates were wrong, or whatever. That doesn't mean nothing counts, or, you know, you get a fail grade or anything's ruined. It just means you fix it, and you know, the sooner you fix it, the more on track you are, and you're fine. Chef Roberta, did you have anything to add before we go?
Yeah, I actually just wanted to say, first of all, this is a very exciting time in your career, okay, because you are now stepping into the industry after this class. So go at it with a sense of excitement and enthusiasm there. And also know that when you are on your externship, you know, this could be the start of a career with that place. So you want to put your best foot forward. I've had many, many students in the past at another institution where, because I was the extern instructor there, where they were surprised that, you know, they started out, oh, I'm just doing my externship here. But you know what? They did such a great job that then they were hired on permanently, and they began their career with that hotel or that bakery, and it really turned into something great. So bear in mind that, you know, this is not just a 6-week gig. This could be the start of something really, a really good work relationship for you and that externship employer.
So true, absolutely. That's wonderful advice. Well, thank you two so much for being here. Does anyone have any other questions before I let them go? They are busy ladies. They've got to make sure that other people are getting their externship hours in right now.
Mm-hmm.
So if not, I'm going to give it a 3, 2, 1. I think you ladies are good to go.
You know where to find us. Please don't hesitate. You can talk to us now before the class starts, and that works for us. So, you know, we're here to help, and don't forget about career services. They're a great resource, and I look forward to seeing you in what, like 8 more weeks with the break. So thank you for your time, Chef Genevieve, and I look forward to having you all in class.
Thank you both.
Guys enjoy your class too.
Thank you both. We'll see
Bye-bye.
you soon. Okay. That was a lot, but I'm glad that we got to talk about it. I loved my externship. It was hard. I felt like I worked constantly because I was still in school and had a part-time job in addition to my unpaid externship. I honestly don't even remember sleeping during that time. But I learned so much in that 3 months. I feel like I remember every single day of work there, because every single day that I was there, I was like, holy moly, I've learned this and I've learned this. And I was just making such huge leaps and strides in that professional setting for the very first time compared to being a student. And I cannot tell you what a wonderful experience it was. So even though it was hard, it was absolutely worth it. That's when she was talking about paid or unpaid. Don't be open-minded to an unpaid externship. Like I said, mine certainly was unpaid, but I did get hired on as staff after my hours were complete. And that might require some planning ahead of time. So that's something else that you guys might think about now, if that's something you have to do. But I don't want to dwell on it too much longer because we've got plenty of week 2 stuff to talk about. Before we jump into week 2, I want to talk about week 1. So I could not be prouder of your on-time submissions this week. You guys, 90% of you submitted on time. I'm pretty sure that's a record. I'm pretty sure we can break another record next week. If we do it, I'm telling you, I've already been Googling incentives for students all day long because I've got to figure out some sort of reward to praise you guys. I was jumping for joy when I got up this morning and I saw that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. That is going to help you start off week 2 on such a good foot because we've got another big project. So please, please keep it up. I will figure out some way, maybe it'll be an extra credit assignment or something like that that I can add at the end to reward you guys, but just absolutely rock star work. In addition to that, the cakes that I am seeing already look like you guys have taken your time. You applied time management, you put thought and care into them. You didn't proceed with frosting that wasn't at the right consistency. You adjusted it, whether it was chilling it or heating it up. Just really set the bar high for yourselves. I know I've had most of you in 201. Most of you are already really strong students, so I had pretty high expectations walking into the assignments this week, and still you guys knocked my socks off. So I want to share some pictures. You guys know me, I like to highlight all parts of production, not just the final project. So this picture is a beautiful example of a crumb coat. It is thin, it is tidy. It's also already forming a really nice crisp edge at the top. The way that it is setting on the cake, she really made sure to build that wall, or this student, I'm not sure, made sure to build that wall, smooth out the top, creating a really defined corner or rim going all the right way around the top. You'll also notice that it doesn't skirt out. That's something that can take a little practice. It's almost unnatural to have your bench scraper super parallel. I tend to tilt mine up, and then what happens is your cake's frosting eventually sort of volcanoes out towards the bottom. So this one here just has a really straight wall, so that was a job well done. Let's see if I can get to the next one here. This one I love. She added fresh fruit along with her icing in the center, and I felt like it was such a fun surprise when you slice into this cake. It's a simple flat white cake. There's fresh fruit on top, of course, but I think that that's really fun to cut into your cake and see that additional pop of color on the interior. Looking at this one here, this cake was presented to me first meeting the requirements. So with its flat coat of icing, with just a shell border, he took all of his pictures, or this student took all of their pictures, and then added the additional decorations afterwards. I thought they were beautiful, but the thing that knocks my socks off about this cake is the uniform on the interior. The cakes are the same size, the amount of frosting in between the layers is the same, the amount of frosting on the top and down the side is the same. So really strong example. The shell border is really nice and defined. You can tell that this person was using one continuous motion but moving slowly. This one here, portfolio worthy photo 1,000 times over. When I saw this picture, I gasped. It's portrait mode. If you have an iPhone, I'm pretty sure Androids can do it too. I don't have an Android, but Androids have really fancy cameras too. I know that. But these days, in the world that we live in, most of our smartphones have pretty fancy settings, or apps can help you get that blurred effect behind, so it's only focusing on the product in front. And that's really what's happening here. The camera's just focusing on this slice in front. The cake behind is sort of blurred, but the photo as a whole is such a lovely vignette. Instead of just having a completely plain background and having the cake in the center, I think that this paints a more complete picture. You've got even layers of cake, even layers of icing, a defined shell border. This one here, the thing that I was super in awe of is its flat coat of icing. This is something I still struggle with. Part of it is because I'm impatient. So a lot of times I choose a exterior style that is maybe a bit more rustic because it doesn't take me nearly as much time. But this is a classic traditional technique. This is something that people are looking for every single day. So knowing how to do a flat coat of icing is such an important skill when it comes to cake decorating. And this is just really excellently done. Just smooth as can be, really very few air pockets. I think I've got one more here. I wanted to, again, compliment the smooth top. You don't see very many brush strokes on the side or on the top. The shells are a bit larger. This is something that takes practice, you guys, piping detailed shapes and detailed borders. Let me mute this mic here. There we go. Something that you can do to practice, sorry, had to get my screen switched up there. Something that you can do to practice piping detailed elements like that at a much lower cost is creating a practice icing. You can do so using shortening and powdered sugar. So much less expensive. You're not wasting any butter. Crisco, you don't need a high quality Crisco because you're not going to be eating it. It's not going to taste great, but it will be a very similar consistency that's great for piping onto parchment or paper or your table, wherever you're practicing. And that's the number one thing that I would recommend to you guys is making practice icing and just doing it. If next time you're sitting down and watching a show or listening to music, whip up a little practice icing and just practice like you would drawing or writing. Let's see if I've got some questions down here in the chat. Somebody asked about yellowing of frosting. So yes, some of you noticed that your frosting after setting turned a bit more yellow. So we want to make sure that when we are refreshing it, we mix it for long enough, we are incorporating enough air and bringing it back to the correct temperature. So let's say you put dye into your frosting. You put a few drops of red and you mix it until just combined and you let it rest. It's going to deepen in color. So that yellow is sort of deepening in color as your frosting rests. If you were to continue to whip that red frosting, even after it's rested for a day and it's really deepened in color, if you were to whip it again the next day for an extended period of time, it would absolutely lighten in color. When you incorporate air, it's going to lighten. So if you feel like your frosting was still a bit yellow, continue to mix it. If you're worried about it getting over whipped, you can mix at a medium speed. It will take longer. Sometimes it will take 5, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. I've even had it take 8 to 10 minutes, depending on my mixer. But it will begin to lighten and shade. Kathleen, you have a question?
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Long time no talk. I am very new at cakes, and I'm trying my best. I know that my cake did not rise as I see others did, and after I took it to cards, yes, I'm old, and had everybody taste it, and they could tell, those who were, you know, that it is dense. And so I think if you could just, when you look at my formula, to make sure that I did my adjusted formula to increase it for 1.5. And I think I over whipped it maybe too much. I don't really know. I don't know like when to stop.
Sure, those are good questions. I'll definitely give you more specific details when I check out your feedback. But yes, if your cake was really dense, the first place that I would start is double checking my measurements. The second, though, with a creaming method cake, is that you might not have creamed your butter and sugar together for long enough. When you are creaming fat and sugar together, it can start to get sticky and start to stick to the sides of your bowl before it's really fully creamed. So some of those visual indicators that we've described to you can maybe be misleading. You really want to make sure that you are creaming that fat and sugar together for several minutes, incorporating air until it is light, fluffy, it's grown in size, it's really sticking to the walls of your bowl, not just starting to stick towards the bottom. So when I take a look, I will be looking out for those two things, your measurements, and if your fat and sugar were creamed together properly.
Okay.
As far as mixing your batter once it's complete, I only mix a batter like this for about a minute, maybe a minute and a half, just to make sure that there are no lumps and that it's fully combined. If you noticed a lot of tunneling in your cakes, that's something I saw in a few narratives. Remember that tunneling is signs of air that we've incorporated, too much air. Sometimes that can happen when we transfer from whatever container we're pouring it out of, our bowl, a measuring cup, into the pans. So give your pans a few firm taps on the countertop before going into the oven to pop those bubbles. And I mean firm. You don't want it to splat everywhere. So don't like start way up high and crash down. Start, you know, just a few inches above, but give them a few firm taps to pop some of those air bubbles, and you'll definitely notice less of that tunneling in your final product. I think that more of the holes that you guys saw were a result of not tapping those pans and not so much a lot of over mixing. Of course, Clarissa?
Yes, so my problem came with the piping. I watched the videos several times and I practiced on flat parchment for about 2 hours till my hand was cramping. And the next day when I went to get it, I just couldn't get it right on the cake. And I don't know if it's because I wasn't, doing it on the flat parchment, making lines of it or what, but it just, nothing seemed to come out. They're all different sizes. It's bad.
I recommend practicing on your turntable or practicing in a rounded motion. So instead of practicing on a flat sheet, which is a good place to start, I don't think that that was bad practice at all. You want to practice in that circular motion, because I think that that's something that I found difficult too. When I am sitting down at the table piping on parchment, I usually have both my hands on my piping bag. I'm much more delicate. But when you're working with your cake, you have one hand on your turntable and you've only got one hand on your piping bag. So that's the muscle memory that you want to start building. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I was trying to duplicate like how he was doing it on the video, which was, all in the flat. And I'm like, why isn't this working? It's falling off the side. It's glooping everywhere.
The other thing that you can do is if your cake is really cold, sometimes the the border doesn't want to stick to the cake. So and you have to be careful because you just spent a lot of time smoothing out that cake, but I score just underneath where I'm going to pipe my border. So I take like a toothpick and I make teeny tiny scratches, not big, only small enough that they're going to get covered with the border, but it sort of opens up that cold icing a little bit and it tends to stick. It's the same method that potters use when they're sticking two pieces of clay together. They make little scratches. It opens up the moisture of that area and the two products stick together better. So that's something you might try too if your border isn't sticking as well as you want it to. Okay, you guys, if that's it for week 1 questions, we've got lots of week 2 to talk about still, and we are in crunch time already. Let me pull up my resources here. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about quickly is our 2-stage method cake. I don't want to spend too much time. We're not going to watch the video for it in this class. You guys, the video's on our class page. You guys can check it out on your own. I just want to quickly walk through the formula together. But this is one of the most basic cake methods that's out there. You will see it time and time again. You will notice, I'm sure, having used it before, even boxed cake mixes are kind of like a modified 2-stage method cake, combining your liquids together, combining your dries together, and then mixing them until just completed. So let me share here. It says preheat oven to 350 degrees. This is where I bake my cakes. If I know that I am using the cake within the next day, maybe 2. If I am making a cake maybe 4 or 5 days ahead of time, which you can do, I tend to bake at 325, let it bake a little more slowly, still let it bake all the way through, but I try and let it bake until just baked and pull it out. That way it maybe has a few more days of that fresh sponge flavor. So remember, when you see a temperature on a page, that it is a suggestion. You guys are in your last class of the program now. I'm sure you have all experienced baking something at the suggested temp and it not turning out the way that you thought. So using visual indicators like your cake pulling away from the sides of the pan, its color, the smell, does it bounce back when you press it on the top, are all things that you want to use to help decide if your cake is baking evenly and if it's baked all the way through. Some of you mentioned having difficulty getting your cake out of your pans last week, and I'm not sure I discussed parchment with you, but you definitely want to be cutting parchment circles. The easiest way, the fastest way that I do this is I put my cake pan in the corner of a rectangle of parchment, draw a circle, and then I fold that up as many times as I can where I still have that full circle, cut it out that way, and then I've got like 6 of them already. So that actually, in my externship, was one of my jobs. There was definitely like 3 days where they just had me cut out parchment circles for cakes. That was a long 3 days, and I cut out a lot of parchment circles. But spray your pan, place your parchment in, and then I spray my parchment just a little bit more so that it doesn't tear off too much cake when I try and peel it off the bottom. So we're going to sift our flour, cocoa, baking powder, soda, salt, sugar into the mixing bowl. Add your shortening first, then your milk. With the paddle attachment, mix at a low speed for 7 to 8 minutes, stopping the machine several times to scrape down the bowl and paddle. Please make sure that you are stopping the mixer to scrape. Make sure that you're not just scraping the sides. I know my mixer has like a little divot. It's got like a little round part and then it's a little sunken circle, and that's so that the whisk can move around smoothly. But my dry ingredients get stuck down there sometimes, so make sure that when you're scraping you really get down to the bottom of the bowl. Whisk to combine the remaining milk, vanilla, and eggs. Those 3 ingredients you can combine together. So in a larger bowl or a measuring cup, you can combine your milk, vanilla, and eggs. Add the mixture to the batter in 3 parts. After each part, turn off the machine and scrape the bowl. Continue mixing for a total of 5 minutes. So this is a longer mixing time, this 2-stage method. One of those reasons is incorporating air. Remember that we took that step with our fat and sugar for our creaming method cake. And no matter the method, it's important with a cake that we are incorporating that air. I don't know if you guys remember your gluten-free cakes from BK201, the flourless chocolate cake. Not a lot of air incorporated into that product. So after you fill your prepared pans, the instructions here even remind us, give your pan several sharp raps. So what they mean are those taps on the countertop, those firm bangs. These say bake approximately for 30 minutes. They are referencing an 8-inch pan. So if you are using a 6-inch pan or a different size, the bake time might be different. But honestly, the bake time will probably be different for all of you, depending on your equipment, where you live, humidity, how much batter you put into the pan. There are a lot of variables that can affect that bake time. Cool for 10 to 15 minutes. I cool until room temperature. I take them out of the oven, put them aside, and let them cool completely before I attempt to take them out of their pan. Something else that I'm not sure I mentioned to you guys last week is that I like to chill my cakes before I trim them. So after my cakes have come out of the oven and cooled to room temperature, I wrap the layers individually and tightly in saran wrap and chill them in the fridge for at least a few hours. I find it much easier to trim a cold cake, and I find it less messy, less crumbs, than I do one that's just room temperature, hasn't been chilled yet. Any questions on the 2-stage method? It's pretty straightforward. If you think of any questions, you guys know that you can message me about them. So the next thing I want to do is go over the mousse formula. I want to watch the mousse video together because I do think that this mousse is a little bit trickier. If you guys know what to be looking for, then it's going to go smoothly for you. So let's start with the formula. First of all, can anybody tell me what the difference between let me get that working, or what a pate bombe is? Does anybody know what a pate bombe is?
No, but I've seen them.
Yeah. I wrote about it in our field guide this week.
A baked Alaska is a pate bombe.
So a pate bombe is basically a meringue, except it includes whole eggs and egg yolks. So it's a slightly modified technique. It's definitely a richer flavor, which is why it is so frequently used for chocolate or for mousse. Let's see if I can get this recipe to load for us now. Okay, well, guess we're going to start with the video. Can you guys hear that? Okay.
Chocolate mousse is a dessert made from a chocolate cream base with the addition of an egg foam, whipped cream, or both. Depending on the preparation method, it can vary from light and fluffy to creamy and thick. The end product is multifunctional, as it can be served by itself or used as a filling. To begin, set up a bain-marie on the stove with a metal bowl containing the chocolate. Be sure that the bottom of the bowl does not come into contact with the hot water. Next, carefully melt the chocolate and then set it aside to cool at room temperature. While the chocolate is cooling, add the cream to a cold mixing bowl. Using the whip attachment, whip the cream until it forms soft peaks. even the last few strokes by hand. Remove the cream when finished, as the mixing bowl will be needed again shortly. In a separate saucepan, add the sugar with enough water to reach a wet sand consistency, no more and no less. Turn the heat on to medium and brush down the side with water to prevent crystallization. Continue to do this until the mixture reaches the softball stage and reaches 240 degrees. Back in the mixing bowl, start the process of whipping the yolks on a low speed. As the yolks are mixing, begin to add the hot sugar syrup in a steady stream. When the sugar syrup is added, increase the speed to high and continue to mix until the mixture triples in volume, cools, and appears light in color, which will take about 5 minutes. Once the mixture is cooled to room temperature, stop the mixer and remove the bowl. Next, add about 2 ounces of the melted chocolate to the yolks to even out the temperature before combining both the egg mixture and the chocolate. Evening out the temperature prevents the chocolate from seizing. Gently mix the two until they're fully incorporated.
So this is the step that I see students go wrong most often. Their chocolate has cooled too much and it seizes when they add it to their eggs. You will know if your chocolate seized because it will look like little chocolate flecks. It will still be a perfectly usable mousse. So if it happens to you, I don't want you to panic. It will still be delicious. You can absolutely still enrobe your cake with it. But that's what, if you notice lots of little darker flecks, that is chocolate that has seized. And that's just hardened more quickly than you wanted it to. So again, no need to panic if that happens. But if you notice, if you feel like your chocolate's gotten a little too cool, just put it back over a double boiler, warm it back up a little bit closer to the temperature of your eggs before you combine them. And you shouldn't have any seizing of your product. Let's finish our video here.
Finally, using a spatula, add in the whipped cream in thirds, taking extra care to avoid deflating the mousse. All of the ingredients should be uniformly integrated with no visible streaks. Before the mousse can be piped into a serving vessel or used as a filling, allow it to cool in the refrigerator.
So here's the thing about this week. Oh, we've got 2 questions out. Let me tell you guys this one thing and then I'll jump to them. typically you would chill your mousse, like Chef Tom was just saying, before you would pipe it into a serving dish or whatever. This week, you are not going to chill your mousse first, because what we will be doing is enrobing our cake. It is easier to enrobe your cake if your mousse is still at that slightly looser stage after just creating before chilling. I'm going to show you guys some pictures of how we're going to enrobe that cake, because the hard part is filling your cake with that loose mousse. So something you might consider is putting a small portion of that mousse into the fridge to chill so that you can fill your cake with it between your layers of cake. And then you keeping the rest slightly warmer so that you can enrobe your product. And again, I'll show you pictures after I answer questions. Go ahead, Clarissa.
So how do we handle the mousse without completely deflating the egg whites? Because it looks like he was going at it pretty rough. And last time I did that, it collapsed my stuff.
So that white thing he added was not meringue, it was whipped cream. Because remember, the egg yolks and the whole eggs were mixed together with the cooked syrup.
Right, okay.
Yep, no, good question, and absolutely, most of the things that we've made with meringue, that's what we've done, we've folded it into another product. So good question, but yes, that's whipped cream. I like to make my whipped cream last. It's my last step. Yet once you've combined your chocolate and eggs, it's fine if it's sitting there for a second while you whip up your cream. You guys know that it doesn't take very long to whip cream up at all. So I like to whip my cream last. I like to whip it to a medium peak. So it's a little bit, now a medium peak does mean that I have to spend more time folding it in. It takes me a little longer to get it fully combined, but it feels a little safer, a little more stable to me. So yeah, you can make your whipped cream last. He made it first before he made his other things. That's okay, but it does tend to start to deflate over time. So yeah, make my whipped cream last. Do it in thirds, like he said. That first portion is kind of like your sacrifice, right? It's going to help loosen up that chocolate and eggs even more. The second portion will help loosen it, and the third portion will be easiest to incorporate, because at that point it will be much more loose. Rebecca asked me, I do a Boston cream. So I want you to have you can choose a flavor of cake. It needs to be a 2-stage method cake, but you have to have it coated in a mousse based on a Pate Bombe, and then you have to have either a mirror glaze or ganache glaze. So with this week in particular, I really recommend sticking to the formulas. Now that being said, on our class page, let me share that with you. You can see that under the formulas, here's the Devil's Food formula, chocolate mousse, and mirror glaze. I have listed the white cake 2-stage method recipe in your textbook. And then I've listed a ganache glaze recipe here. So the mirror glaze formula is listed up above, or you may use this ganache glaze recipe here. The ganache glaze is easier. I do want to walk through the mirror glaze formula with our last few minutes here. I don't think we're gonna have time to watch the video together, but that's okay. You guys can watch the video on your own. I will send out a message with some super fun videos that I wish I had more time to share with you today, but I will definitely send them to you in a message because they're fun and they're cool, and mirror cakes are super, super trendy still. I thought that when they first occurred, so many things in our world in pastry are trends. They sort of come and go. But there are some things that end up just being so popular that they really become a staple. And mirror glazes seem to be one of those things that I thought was going to be a trend, but really doesn't seem to be going anywhere. So let's walk through that formula together. If I can get it to work. Well, maybe not. I'm not sure what's going on there. So I guess we will watch the video because I can't get the formula to come up. Please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you have questions about the formula. We'll watch this video. Oh, go ahead.
Jeff, several of those links actually are coming up blank when I tried to open them.
Okay, I will reach out. That's what's happening to me right now. So I will make sure that our tech team looks at that. They were working for me this morning. I mean, we were able to go through that one formula together, so I'm not sure what's going on.
I had checked on them about half an hour before class to start looking ahead, and none of it would pull up.
All right. So let's watch this video. If you have to leave, I totally understand. I know we're going over just a few extra minutes. And if any of you, of course, have more questions, I'm available to you throughout the whole week. Please reach out to me, whether it's text or call. We can do a one-on-one Zoom session if you need. I'm here to help because I know that this week is a big week. But let's take a look at this video.
A chocolate mousse cake is made up of layers of cake and chocolate mousse and can be either frosted or topped with a glaze. This dessert has an impressive presentation and can be a standout item in a bake shop or restaurant. To assemble the mousse cake, start by placing a ring mold on top of a cake circle. Add a layer of cake at the bottom of the ring mold, being sure it is flush with the bottom.
Really quick, you guys, you can do this without a ring mold. If you just have a larger size cake pan, cut down the size of your cake. So for example, if you have an 8-inch cake pan, trim your cake to be about 6 inches to place inside that cake pan. Because then what you're gonna do is pour mousse over that first layer so that it goes down the sides and is covering the top. Then you're gonna put in your second layer and again, pour that in. Pour that mousse over the sides and the top. The mousse should be going down the sides, in between the layers, and on top. Then you're going to freeze it. It's going to be a little more difficult to remove from a cake pan that's not bottomless, but it is possible using a torch, heating up the sides of your cake pan gently. So if you do not have a ring mold, you can use a larger size cake pan. Yes, Kelly? Oh, you're muted.
What about a spring form? Does that work?
Yep, spring form will work. You might consider putting a piece of saran wrap at the bottom before like clicking it into place to make sure that mousse doesn't seep out. That's the one thing I've heard with the spring form pans is that people have noticed a little bit more that there's some seepage. But I mean, that's what I use for cheesecakes and things like that. So if you feel like your bottom is really nice and tight in, then a spring form pan should work fine. Okay, let's keep watching.
Next, pipe a layer of mousse from the outside in, trying to make it even throughout the layer.
So this is what I meant, and this, you can chill your mousse and have more control over it, but I find it easier to use my mousse at that looser stage and pour in because it gives me a more consistent effect.
If you need to fill in a little more, just use your offset spatula, add it, and then spread it in. This helps with a small offset. Just hold it nice and level. Use your turntable to help it spin while you flatten and push the mousse. After the first layer of mousse, carefully add another layer of cake. Press down gently to adhere the bottom to the mousse. Repeat this stacking with the desired amount of layers, finishing the top layer with mousse. After the cake is assembled, place it in the freezer overnight. This ensures that it will retain its structure. Once the cake is frozen overnight, remove it from the freezer. Use a torch around the edge of the cake, just enough to separate the ring mold from the cake. After unmolding, it's time to prepare the mirror glaze. Add the cold water to a mixing bowl and sprinkle the gelatin over it. Stir together until it begins to thicken, then let it set for a few minutes until it resembles applesauce. Next, on the stove, add the water, sugar, and condensed milk and vanilla to a pot, stirring to combine.
Similar process to panna cotta, which you guys remember from BK201, so nothing too crazy there.
Chef, does it have to be vanilla?
Nope, you can flavor it however you'd like. I do recommend not trying to go crazy with the colors. As we get closer to the end here, and I'm gonna have to skip through a little bit of it, but the mirror glaze has to be within a certain temperature window for it to pour over your cake correctly, which means if you are doing multiple colors and maybe you've got like them in Dixie cups that you're like pouring onto the top of other colors, they all have to be within that temperature window. So you have to have them all prepped at the same time, and you've got to move really quickly. So I recommend not trying to get too complex with colors this week. You can leave it just the white if you want to. You don't have to color it at all. So, but yes, you can flavor it however you'd like.
Once everything is in the pot, bring the heat up to medium and bring the liquids to a gentle simmer. When the liquids reach a light simmer, turn off the heat and stir in the bloom gelatin. It will appear fluid and pourable. After the gelatin is incorporated, pass the mixture through a sieve to be sure the glaze is completely smooth. Next, place the chocolate in a bowl and then pour the hot liquid mixture over it. Stir gently with a spatula until it begins to melt. Do not use a whisk, as it's important to avoid introducing any air bubbles.
Once you've poured it onto your chocolate, try and let it sit for a minute or so to really warm up that chocolate. It'll be much easier to stir the two together.
Check to make sure there aren't any lumps of chocolate behind. Once it's smooth, you're ready to go. When the chocolate is fully melted, the whole mixture should be smooth and uniform. At this point, if desired, food coloring can be added to the glaze. To make a marbled look, divide the glaze into different bowls and then gently combine and swirl before pouring it. Once the glaze is colored, allow it to cool to the target temperature range between 90 and 94 degrees. After the glaze has cooled and the cake is unmolded, it's ready to be glazed. Prepare the cake by setting a smaller sized cake pan underneath it, flipped upside down.
So if your glaze is still too hot, it will appear too thin on your cake. You will feel like you can see through it. If your glaze is too cold, it will be chunky. It will look like it's clinging in larger portions to your cake as opposed to dripping off the way that it should. So that's why that target temperature window is really important.
And set it on a clean sheet pan. It's also a good idea to have a spatula on standby for touching up the glaze. Next, to pour the glaze, use a continuous circular motion from the center and move outward as needed. Be sure to coat the top and the sides completely. If you need to, just use a little dab, touch it up. Make sure you check all the way around quickly. Give the pan a little vibration. Help settle out any bubbles. You can add a little bit of dust. There's the top. Chase it with a little torch.
The torch is optional. It is just to pop air bubbles.
Then check around the bottom edge. You can just use your offset spatula, clean up that edge. After the glaze has set, transfer it to a cake board or platter. Keep chilled in the refrigerator to defrost it before slicing and serving. Mousse cake is a light dessert that isn't overly sweet or covered in heavy frosting. It can be varied by adding fresh fruit or even made in individual portions for a fast plated dessert. Mousse cake is...
Okay, Kelly, go ahead.
So it looked like she took that out of the freezer and it sat on the counter the whole time. Is that a good idea?
No, that's movie magic, or movie timing, TV food timing, as I like to call it. So no, your cake should be frozen when you pour your glaze over it. So, you know, you might give it a little bit of time. Like if your glaze is you're blooming your gelatin, maybe that's when you take out your cake on your countertop, because it should be frozen overnight, so completely frozen. So if it's sitting on your counter for a little bit while you're making your glaze, that's totally fine. But you do want it to be cold before you pour that glaze, cold and firm before you pour that glaze over. Good question. Any other questions? I know that we've gone over time, so I don't want to hold you guys too much longer. I know you guys are busy, but you know that I'm here for you, and you can message me, call me, text me, beat me if you want to reach me. Kim Possible theme song. Anybody remember that one? No more questions?
Were we talkative enough today?
Yes, you guys were. And I want even more people to keep talking. Thank you. I want it to be a discussion. I want it to be fun. This class is so fun. Cakes are fun. It just brings people joy and makes me excited. So I'm going to keep pressuring you guys to be chatty with me. Alrighty, I'll let you guys go. Thank you again. I know it was a long day. We had to cover that externship stuff in the beginning, but hope to hear from you soon, and I can't wait to check out your cakes.
Bye, Chef.
Bye.
Thank you.